Well, it is International Women's Day, but I'm not wishing you happy International Women's Day because I do believe that we are all very much collaborative in this universe. However, I would like to put the spotlight on Latifa Bin Haider, who is the founder of Baituki. Now, Baituki is a wonderful platform that gives women all the information they need to start investing early, helps them make the right decisions, be well informed, and get the right kind of guidance to take what they would love to invest in from scratch to stage. And it's been an amazing conversation with Latifa just because she's so confident that her confidence is so infectious that it keeps you inspired and hooked throughout the way. There were so many questions that I had, and this young girl had so many wonderful answers to it that I want you to check out on this episode. And until the next one, until the next connect, stay tuned because this is Karishma Connect. So thank you so much, Latifa, firstly, for joining me on Karishma Connect. It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm so excited to getting to know more about your journey. I've heard a lot from a common source, and I'm really looking to unravel it all on this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to having this conversation with you.
Most welcome. Now, the first thing that I do on my podcast is I tell people, I say, tell me about your vibe, tell me about your journey, tell me about how you started, what's so special about where you are today, and what makes it worth celebrating.
So I started my journey, my entrepreneurship journey, when I was still a sophomore in university.
Okay.
And it's been honestly very exciting and a very steep learning curve ever since. And literally every day has been just wonderful and full of learning. And if I were to say one word about my vibe, honestly, it would be very, very difficult. I would, I should have asked someone around, like someone that I work with, to answer this for me. But I would say energetic, on the go. Yeah, maybe that would be a word. My passion is to help people have better lives. So I'm a social entrepreneur. Any project that I start has to have a positive impact on my community, on society. So if it really doesn't have that factor, it doesn't get me up in the morning, I would say. So my passion is helping people have better lives overall.
And that's a beautiful passion to have. And tell me, if you were to explain what you do to a 5-year-old, how would you say it?
How would I say it?
How would you break
I
it?
help people solve problems that they might know that they have or sometimes don't know that they have. I really try to simplify this as much as possible, but if I were to explain it to a 5-year-old, I would say my work is helping people have better lives.
And if they asked you, how would you define a problem? What would you say is a problem at the end of the day?
Something that is a problem. To put it simply, it's anything that is in the way of you reaching your full potential.
Well put, indeed. Okay, where does Betuki come in the picture of solving those problems? How did you start it? How did you envision it? What was your need factor when you came up with this idea?
Mm-hmm. So I started in the last year of university, and I was actually part of an entrepreneurship program completely different from, Beituki and what it is. And I attended one of those workshops that explained this new sort of opportunity. Oh, you can own property with your budget, just like a fraction of it instead of the whole thing. And I got excited because I remember the advice that I grew up with, that I should be smart with my money, I should invest in gold, and then when I have enough money in the future, get into real estate. And I kept thinking, okay, that's a very long-term goal. But then when I heard about this, I thought, wait a second, I actually have enough savings to own a fraction of a property. So I started speaking to the ones around me as well about it. Because, usually when you hear about something, you get excited and you tell your loved ones, the people you care about. So you want the best for them as well. And I kept hearing all about the fears, and they would love to, but can't because of XYZ. And those XYZ were extremely common it was actually shockingly common for me because I spoke to hundreds of women before even giving Beituki its name to
Mm,
understand why haven't you started?
mm,
Because every single conversation I was having told me that they were extremely interested. They're very intrigued and they would love to, but they're scared
mm,
and they had hesitations. And those common hesitations were, first of all, I don't have enough money, which is very valid because the investing in real estate is not
yeah,
exactly the most affordable option out there.
true.
And second of all, if I don't have enough experience or knowledge, I'm gonna completely avoid this because I'm scared. I don't know if I'm gonna get scammed. Am I making the wrong decision?
Mm,
And another thing was also lack of female representation in the market. So
yes.
what I kept hearing was, when I hear the word investment or real estate, I imagine a guy in a suit, and it's very difficult for me, or it's extremely intimidating for me to approach that.
Yeah.
And lastly, it is if somebody does have the funds and they do understand the market, they don't want or they cannot really allocate the time that comes with it. So doing your research, running the numbers, seeing if it's a financially viable investment. So these were the most common reasons. And today I can say that I spoke to over 2,000 women since
Wow.
starting Beituki, and I hear the same reasons time and time again. So these are the pains that Beituki addresses. So what we do is we vet and we source the properties, as in we check everything, we run the numbers, we prepare the reports to show our clients. So if they like the investment, they hit on invest, they type in their budget. So this solves also the lack of sufficient funds, I would say. So you can start with 5,000, you can put in 20,000. Some people want to put in 100,000. Either way, it's all up to you, right? So they can start with whatever amount that they have to own a fraction of the property. Once it's fully funded, we manage all the work from A to Z, from purchase process to working with the maintenance company, with the property managers, with whatever it is that comes with the property. And then we facilitate the sale. So then that also addresses the lack of time that the people have when it comes to investing in real estate specifically. Yeah, and then the last thing is the lack of female representation.
Mm,
Coincidentally,
mm.
the Basically team is all female. It was not on purpose, I promise. It really just happened to be so, and all the team members connect with we have this shared purpose of wanting more women to invest in real estate, benefit from the returns, have a proper investments portfolio that has properties in it, even if they don't have enough funds.
Yeah.
So it really just happened to be so, and during our events as well, our people come, they network, they connect with like-minded people and get to meet the team. So they have this, I want to say, we are slowly breaking the sort of barrier or this image that, oh, if it's real estate, if it's finance, if it's investments, it has to be a guy.
Yeah.
But really it doesn't, because there are so many women out there who are amazing and doing a wonderful job, but very little, I would say. Yeah, or let's say they're not very well known, perhaps.
Yeah.
So our goal is to increase the number of female investors to benefit from those investments. And honestly, unfortunately, there's a huge gap between the number of female investors and male investors. And that is not just here, it's a global thing.
Yeah.
So our goal as Beituki is to increase the number of female investors, at least starting with this region and then hopefully going global.
Inshallah.
Mhm.
On that note, I have a question about, have you noticed any sort of difference with, not from a gender specific perspective, but just generally, have you noticed any difference between the way women invest and the way men invest? Is there something?
100%, 100%. Women are much more risk averse, and from my understanding and my research, it's in our nature. And what the first thing we say is it's okay to accept that we're different. What I always preach is that women or men are different. We're not the same. We don't need to compete. We complement each other.
Exactly.
So we need women in the industry who also understand how women think, what kind of needs they have. So when I approach women to talk about these kind of things, I would say that the conversation is a little bit different, and it's simply because of the way that we think. So women are generally more risk averse. We need to usually address concerns that they usually have, like what are the returns going to be like, which is very generic, or how can I be sure that you're not going to run away with my money, or can you share with us your trade license, or how does this work? And sometimes it needs to be a lot more detailed than when we have a conversation with a male about it, given that they're most are very comfortable with the conversation. They probably had it a lot of times over and over with some friends or other companies. They're usually more experienced, so they would just come with direct questions like, where is this investment, how does this work, what's the ROI, okay, great, thank you. Versus when we speak to the women, the conversations are much longer, and there's also an educational factor in them.
And how would you define prosperity? What would you say is the best way to kind of prioritize it?
Prosperity is abundance. It is the opposite of scarcity. And the best way to prioritize it is by revising what you've been doing so far and then putting an action plan starting today to achieve it.
That's lovely. That's a lovely note. And what are the three areas that you think when you're looking for financial growth, especially in the region, what are the three mantras that you think one should keep in mind?
The first thing, or the first step, is to learn. Just keep in mind that we as humans constantly need to learn about what's going around us, and it's a never-ending thing, right? Learning. So the first step is to learn about it, become more financially literate. Unfortunately, that is a very huge problem, and it could be because we didn't learn about it in schools or in university even. It could be because the conversation was not held in our households. It could be because even when we go off to work with our friends or colleagues, again, it's not spoken about. So become more financially literate and understand how money works. Then make an action plan to achieve your financial goals, such as comparing your liabilities or your debts to your current assets. So a lot of people don't even start with this exercise, and I believe that this is a very important one. And you need to take steps towards decreasing those liabilities or the debts and increasing your assets, preferably income generating ones. And then as you gain experience, your risk appetite will most likely increase. So then you'll start looking for different opportunities or different things to invest in. And that really just, you become more confident over time. You have a more diversified investment portfolio. And then finally, I would say you have to teach the ones around you those skills that you gained, especially your children, so that you can break the cycle of bad financial habits and help them build good ones very early on.
Yeah, yeah. And you started all of this when you were straight out of college, right? How did you navigate that journey? How did you navigate that journey at such a young age? And also, how did it feel? And this comes from a very personal place because I have often been the youngest in the room, and I do know what are the challenges and opportunities that come with being that way. How did you navigate those? What were the kind of challenges that you faced? And yeah.
So I would have to say that I actually started before even graduating. So I was about 19 or 20 when I was in those rooms, and I didn't have a lot of experience. Usually I was a very good listener at those. And then when the time came, let's say, to pitch your idea on stage or something, I would have practiced a lot by then. So at the very beginning, I was very much quiet and in learning mode, which sometimes I still do because I love to listen and understand what's going on around me. But then as time passed, I realized that I have gained experience. I do have something to say. I'm learning. And then slowly, sometimes I would go somewhere, I would be a speaker on stage, or I would do something, and I would get these kind of looks like, how old is this girl? And then when I start speaking, I can see the face expressions changing.
Yes.
And I believe it's really just how you carry yourself, how you represent yourself. So there will always be people who are, I would say, ageists that
Yeah.
believe that you need to be a certain age to be able to do something.
Yeah.
And that first you need to, like, if you want to start your own company, you have to have worked for like 20 years and then really understood the market and then start something. But for me personally, I believe that I decided to start from college and then fresh out of college continue on that path and not go for this route, because I had a vision and I had goals, and I really did not want them to be boxed, because you train your brain. It's a muscle that you train. So if I go down a path and learn something a certain way, it would be very hard to undo, versus starting something with like this open field and there is no box and you can really see things in a different way. And I thought that was a strength. So I learned from here and I learned from there. I had the right support and I was able to navigate. And I have to say that if it weren't for my support circle, if it weren't for my mentor, if it weren't for my friends, for my family, I would not have been able to overcome these challenges, because they are overwhelming. It's not, rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. You have good and you have the bad days. And then when you don't have experience in a certain thing, and it's like you're just starting and it's very new, it
Yes.
can be intimidating.
Yes.
But I do have to say that with time, I did gain the experience and I did build my confidence. And now I look at it as, if I was able to overcome all these, what's one more thing? And it's really exciting to start something new now. It used to be scary, even though I was scared and I was like, I'm still gonna do this. I want to do this. And now it's, you know what? I'm not really scared. It's more of, you can see them as like good nerves that
Yeah.
would make you want to do your research and really understand better things before, or plan better before you start. But I was able to navigate because of my support circle, because I want to say that even though I was scared, I still did it.
Yeah.
I didn't let that fear stop me. And as much as it was intimidating sometimes being the youngest in the room, I did not let that stop me from sharing my thoughts or opinions. And then I was able to observe from the face expressions, or, whatever it is, if I'm in a meeting or on stage, I was able to observe and see that, okay, I think I gained their trust and respect. This is very interesting. So with time, I would say it really takes time, but you can't really give up because you're scared. That is not a reason. You're gonna have a lot of regrets.
True that. And tell me, do you agree? I feel like you also become more empathetic as a leader when you've started out. So because you kind of know what you want to do, how you want to treat your team, how you want to, and because you're young, you're kind of able to adapt to that change and implement it. What do you think about that?
100%. I agree with you. And if you speak to any of my colleagues, any of my team members, they would tell you, because I also make sure to ask them to make sure that um we are having a positive experience together,
Yeah.
that we have a healthy work environment overall, and it's not just me who needs to be empathetic, it's every single member that needs to be empathetic
Very
towards one
true.
another as well.
Yeah, very true. And what's the one startup advice? Because you have started out and you've literally started out so much from the scratch. What do
Mhm.
you think is that one startup advice that every entrepreneur needs to know today?
I always say, start even if you're scared. Just make sure that you plan, you ask around. There will always be someone who can help. You would be surprised at the number of people who would like to help. And make sure that if you reach a point where you feel like you need to pivot, it's okay. You can pivot. You can't be stubborn about something that you built just because you spent time and effort on it. Because how it works is, what you provide needs to be valuable to others. It cannot be only valuable to you, else how is that going to be successful? So if you keep your ears open and eyes wide open, if you hear from your clients or target market or audience that they would like something specific, or you when you have those conversations and you feel like your product is not really selling, you need to understand why. So have those honest, open conversations, and then you will really have to pivot and you have to be agile. It doesn't work when you build something and then try to shove it down people's throats to be like, you
Yeah.
have to like because I built it. That's not really how it works.
Are there any community groups or support groups that you've come across during your journey that people can benefit from if they're listening into this?
Support groups for
Startup
entrepreneurs.
for entrepreneurs?
Um, I can't label them as support groups, but there are so many that you can join, and you can speak to other founders or, entrepreneurs, and they'll be sharing their journeys. And I have joined quite a few. I mean, you really have to network and you have to meet people, you have to go out there and speak.
True.
There are so many. I mean, right now, just from the past year, I joined about 3 or 4 groups, and I can't say that I networked that much because I was really focusing on my startup.
Mm.
So even without that much networking, I was able to find at least 4 groups that I joined, and was able to find founders that I can just message something on their group and go like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Does anyone have experience solving 1, 2, 3? And then I would get at least 5 messages, on private chats telling me I did this and this is what I went through. So maybe you should try this company, or here's a link, or this is what I did. And this, so like I said, you really have to ask to get an answer.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised at the number of people who really want to help because they've also gone through the same thing.
Any two names or something that you can recommend people, because it would really help them.
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually part of one of them it's called the Emirati Combinator EC.
Okay.
We are very little. The number of Emirati founders is quite small.
Mhm.
So we made that group to kind of get to know each other. So that's one of them. Another one is quite amazing. It started by my amazing friend Christina. It's called Future Innovation Founders,
Oh,
and
wow.
that group also keeps growing. And that's 2 of them at least that I
That's
can give.
awesome.
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure it'll help, listeners, whoever's listening from that perspective. One of my guests on this podcast told me once, she said, it's often and I keep quoting this because it's the most brilliant thought that I've had so far. She said,
Mhm.
it's often in the unknowing that I learn the most. It's often in what I don't know that I learn the most. And having started out young, having started out from scratch, I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of places where you feel like, do I know this to my 360-degree ability or whatever? So how do you navigate that, and how do you do you believe in that? Do you agree to that?
I 100% agree with that.
Mhm.
And if anything, I really feel like in those, just as you quoted, I have learned the most.
Yeah.
And because it's kind of like you're trying to navigate your way through a very dark tunnel.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, how to explain this? Like there's a wall of rocks, and then you slowly have to take them one by one, and then the light comes in. So what I say is, with every step you take, things get clear, your path gets clear, and it's never going to be clear from day one. But in those, I found personally that I have grown the most. So I do my research, I ask around, like I said, especially if I know someone who has experienced that thing that I'm about to venture into. I ask and I make sure to understand as much as possible. But keep in mind, you will never have that 360 view or experience of anything. So
Yes.
even some experts in the field will tell you that I actually don't know everything. I can even ask my friend who is, more specialized in XYZ to, we kind of need each other to have that full rounded experience. But what I mean is, you're never going to know everything, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
do your research, ask around, and then go ahead. That's what I do. I kind of jump in, even if I'm scared. And you don't have and can't possibly know everything. But like I said, with each step, it gets clearer. And I learned that firsthand the hard way. And of course, it comes with fears, but that should not stop you. I've reached a point after all that I've gone through where I see fear as a good thing, because it means that it's something that I'm excited to do. Usually, if it's not getting my heart racing, at least, or some excitement, or keeps me up at least for one night to think about, maybe it's not as exciting to
Yeah.
me as it should be. So that can be a very good sign, by the way. You can take it as good nerves, like I said. And then, what's the worst thing that could happen? I learn from it. I leave with experience.
Yeah.
What if it goes sideways? So what? So
Yeah.
if it goes well, great. If it doesn't, then it's okay, because I know that I've tried my absolute best. like I said, you really need to try and do your best so that you don't have any regrets versus if I did not give up because I was scared, maybe today I would have been XYZ. I think that is one of the worst or saddest things
True
that
that.
anyone can
True
say.
that. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
do have one more thing as well. More often than not,
Yeah.
um, this is something that, I actually tried. So if you ask someone for even just 30 minutes of their time to ask for advice or ask them how their journey was, I even have people approaching me sometimes, and most likely, more often than not, I actually do give them those 30 minutes because I feel their passion. I feel that, they want to learn. And I was like, you know what? I was there and I would really like to help you. And more often than not, like I said, you will have people who will say yes. You should try one person. If they didn't try the other, if they didn't try the third, they will definitely say yes.
Yeah, very true. People are actually out there to help. You'll be surprised. There's so many. I
Mm-hmm.
think the entire podcast is running
If you
on.
don't ask, you'll never know.
Absolutely, totally agreed. One of my last questions to you is that why, simply put, a roundup of the entire podcast, why do you think women should consider investing in real estate and how can they interact with Betuki for clarity on it?
Women should invest in real estate because it's always good to have an investment portfolio.
Mm,
And usually in an investment portfolio, you'd have a mix of things, like things that are low risk and things that are medium and then things that are high risk.
mm,
So having something in the low risk, I would say, like real estate is good. And I think it's in many cultures advice that is passed down in generations.
mm,
And I know that it's usually something that is a bit out of reach or difficult, but with Beituki, we have enabled women to start with small amounts.
mm,
So it's important to invest, benefit from the returns, and you need assets that are income generating, not just things that are stable or increasing in value over time. And with Beituki, if you have, let's say, 50,000 saved up, you can put 10,000, for example, in 5 different properties. So now you own stake in 5 properties, not just one. So you
mm.
kind of diversified also in that regard. So it's always good to invest. And if you're too scared, maybe you can start with um maybe gold investments. Some people don't have any sort of assets. So start with something there. Sometimes people need something tangible as in their hand.
Yeah.
And then go slowly upwards, I would say. But Beituki is there for you. You can reach us on www.beituki.ae. That's BAYTUKI. We are on Instagram, we are on WhatsApp, on our website, we're everywhere. We're literally one message or one phone call away. We're there to help you reach financial prosperity.
That's lovely and more power to you on that note. I've had such a nice time getting to know your story. And I must say, you're such a brilliant speaker. There's so much of passion in the way you talk that you can most naturally notice that it's coming from a special place. So thank you so much for sharing that place with me today on this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Glad to hear that.